Hello everybody, how are you doing today? Glowplasma231 here. I'm joined here along with Jaden.
Unfortunately, for the final time for this series.
Yes.
Thank God.
Yes, and today, as you can probably tell if you clicked on this video, today we are ending out our series on Fire Punch, talking about the final 2 volumes of Fire Punch, volumes number 7 and 8, and here we are covering chapters 61 through 83.
These
23 chapters all wrapped up into this 1 volume, or 2 volumes.
Yes, these are my favorite volumes, because the series finally gets to be over.
Yeah, I can see that. If you don't know, Fire Punch is written by Tatsuki Fujimoto. We're pretty much reading this because Jaden hates Fujimoto's works.
This is a hate read right here, yes.
So we are finishing off this series, so at the end, Jaden can tell us if he does think everything that Fujimoto has written is terrible.
What have I not read so far? I think
Okay, so all of his works are Fire Punch is his first one.
Okay.
Well, before that, he had all of his one-shots,
Yeah.
which are in 2 physical collections here in English. I own those. I can lend them to you. Next is Fire Punch,
Okay.
then Chainsaw Man,
Yep.
and then Look Back and Goodbye Eri.
Which one is Look Back? What's that one about again?
Look Back is the one about the person who draws the manga.
Okay. And it's about the one who makes explosions and whatnot and all that crap?
No,
It makes a movie about his mom dying or something?
no, it's Goodbye Eri.
I've seen Goodbye Eri. I need to read Look Back. Then I'll know for sure. I'll know for sure at that
I
point.
don't know how you could hate Goodbye Eri. That's probably my favorite work of this man. Is
Okay.
Goodbye Eri.
Whatever. Anyways.
Yes, Fire Punch. So we're going to finish it off today. There's really not a whole lot I can start us off by saying besides for what happened last time. Pretty much Agni had been going through a lot of things and had gotten all of his fire taken away and was now living out his days with all of sort of these people that he found, with Judah, who was brainwashed, so he turned into Luna. It was just a very convoluted thing. It's very hard to explain looking back on it now.
And it ends with one of the guys telling Agni to kill the Fire Punch. He's like, yes, I'll kill the Fire Punch.
Yes, and that is the last thing that happens. One of these girls, Tina, who actually is having a child because she got... We're not going to mention that.
The R word.
Yeah. Thank you, Jaden. You're not going to have to make me do a... So pretty much ended up with her asking Agni, since he is strong, to kill Fire Punch. And he's like, I'll do what I have to do. And 61 is a very interesting chapter because it's literally Agni trying to kill himself with a knife out in the woods.
Yeah, it's similar.
And eventually he goes and eats dinner with everybody, passes out, and then goes and drowns himself.
Yeah, it's similar to Deadpool in one of the Deadpool movies where he tries to kill himself over and over and over. He realizes he can't due to his regeneration. So it's the exact same kind of storyline.
Yeah, so that's really all. Like, a bunch of these chapters, I mean, normally for series like these, I wrote a crazy ton of notes. Like, I've wrote pretty much a line on all of these.
Yeah, some of these chapters are so barren, there's hardly anything in them.
Yeah, and it's like, we go into 62, where as Agni's drowning, Luna, as we're just going to call her now, she sort of thinks she is Luna, comes out and sort of saves Agni, and tells Agni to live once again.
Yeah, and he's like, why? Why should I live? And her reasoning was basically, so you can live.
Yeah, because I want to be with you, that's pretty much why.
It's such, okay, whatever, you know.
I want to be honest with you, like last time, I did like pretty much the first main part of these chapters. Like, I enjoyed a good amount of this. I mean, I'll talk about whenever I started not doing it, but at this point, we sort of get an interesting monologue from Agni as he goes and he talks about his sort of previous lives and everything he's lived, and he's like, well, I just have to fake a smile for everyone to see because would I really be a good person if I didn't? Like, it's just an interesting thing like that, and at the end, we suddenly cut to 10 years later.
And it's a wholesome family manga now.
Yeah, it's just so weird.
They should have ended the series here.
Yeah, it's such just a random jump cut up. All right. Whoop-de-dee, 10 years later, would you look at that?
So, the only other major time skip that I've seen that's like this abrupt and stupid is good old Time Paradox Ghost Rider, where 3,000 years of time pass.
I feel like those have had more of a purpose, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh.
Whereas this, they could have done any amount of years. Why 10?
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is before the 10 years happens, we actually see that Tenma's child is born.
Yes.
And chapter 63 sort of starts off with this child, who we learn his name is Oya. And he pretty much just calls like Agni's big bro. We see that they have a sort of interesting relationship where, since he is the only other guy here, so I guess they sort of Oya looks up to Agni in an interesting way.
In my translation, it's Iya.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just OIA.
Oh, yeah, it's for me, it's IYA.
Huh. Yeah, I don't really know.
Okay.
But pretty much we see that Oya just wants to go do stuff with Agni. And he's like, hey, I'm going to just go cut down this tree, so you don't need to do it. And he calls Luna, and Luna comes over, and we see that she's sort of sane now. Not sort of like that dog, and like he tells her, like, hey, Luna, just go take her and keep care of her, right? And at the end, we see this kid's like, hey, don't die, Agni, right? As we cut to Agni with a chainsaw. It seems like he tried to kill himself into one.
Like, did he kill himself?
It's just so random because we see Agni laying on the ground. There's like a chainsaw at his head, and he's bleeding out, and he doesn't have a shirt on. And the next scene, where he has a shirt on, and he's just using the chainsaw to cut down a tree.
Yeah. So if you guys can't tell, Corbin right now is directly referencing the manga right
Because
here.
for the first time ever, I have my computer open, looking at the chapters, along with the notes I take. Because for all of these, we just had the notes. For the first time ever, I'm actually looking at the computer, right?
Interesting.
So at this point, we see that Agni sort of comes back, and Tenma Hero, of course, is Oya's dad, or mom, not dad, talks about it, and she's like, hey, do you still remember who Fire Punch is? I still want to kill him, right? And Agni sort of thinks of all of this, and it's a very interesting thing where she's like, hey, kill Fire Punch for me. And at this time, Agni goes and starts to sleep in the same bed of Luna, like I guess they normally do, and they talk about Fire Punch, and Agni like, hey, what if I was Fire Punch? And she's like, well, don't kill anybody. And at the end of the chapter, we see Sun again.
Yeah.
Who is a crazy religious zealot, pretty much.
When I first read the chapter, I was like, okay, who is this guy? Oh, it's Sun. I didn't even see the text box. I was like, oh, it's this guy.
Well, you don't realize until the final page where you actually see him for the first time. And yeah, it's Sun. So, Sun is still alive, so... We didn't see the body, so he wasn't dead last time.
You know, if you ain't see the body, they ain't dead, which we'll find out again in the next chapter.
Yeah, so 64, again, Sun is just this religious, crazy zealot, and he's just speaking, like, the graces of Agni, and he's, like, damning Judah, and it's just, like, a bunch of political talk.
He talks about the traitor Judah.
Yeah.
And he quotes what almost seemed like a Bible verse at first. I had to look it up to see if it was actually real or not.
Yes, he doesn't. I guess the people of Agnism has sort of formed their own Bible in itself, and he is quoting that. And all of a sudden, he goes and just punches a mountain, or like the ground or whatever, and just makes a crater in it. It is just so random and so out of nowhere.
As is the usual by this author.
And all of a sudden, we now cut to a room where we see a bunch of characters sort of just all smoking and just sitting around like what seems to be a fire. And for some reason, it's Solia, who is the tree girl, who is supposedly the ice witch. Sun is also here. And there's another guy
who looks like Kishibe.
Does he?
Look at him. He looks like Kishibe from Chainsaw Man.
Oh, that Kishibe.
Yeah. Looks like an early version of him.
Nah, I can see it. I think this dude may be like Simon or one of those other regenerative bless that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I think.
Because remember, there's also that dog taming dude.
Sure.
But also, like, this guy doesn't have any importance to him whatsoever. So they all meet, and they pretty much have a talk where they know where Judah and Agni are, and they're going to steal back Judah. And all of a sudden, as this is going on, Sun walks outside, and Nanetto's outside. And she's like, well, here's the thing. We're going to go anyway to go, and we're going to get our revenge. And we see all these people whose families were killed by Fire Punch. So they're wanting to go get revenge.
Okay, so what are they named in your version? The people. They're called...
The Revengers?
For me, it's called the Avengers.
Really?
Just straight up the Avengers. Like,
Really? Yeah, I'm reading it right now. Those whose families were killed by Agni and Judah, and who want revenge.
For me, it just says they're called the Avengers. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, that's what fan translations get you. So at this point, 65 is a really interesting chapter because we now cut back over to where our main cast is. We go to see where Agni and Luna are, and Oi is also out here, and they're using another ice stroll. Did it look incorrectly drawn, Jaden?
Let me see.
Yeah, it kind of does. It looks like an ice stroll to me.
It does from the top, but also, we didn't. Minetto seemingly died though, right?
No, I don't think we actually saw Minetto dead.
Okay, I didn't know if we saw her like fake out death or whatever.
No, for sure we saw that the mask guy who could see souls and the spear lady who didn't wear any clothing.
Okay.
We know that they were dead, at least, and most of the followers of Agniism were.
All right.
So they're outside ice fishing, and all of a sudden, Minetto walks up to them as they hear like motorcycles in the background. And Minetto's here, and pretty much Minetto has a speech of, and Agni realizes who it is, and she calls Agni by his name, and of course Agni's trying to hide his identity. Very interesting thing, and she pretty much gives a long short of, hey, they won't Judah or Luna, whatever you call her, just give her up, and you and these other people you're living with can be perfectly fine.
I already knew at this point he's going to choose a sister, because they basically said, choose your sister or save the world.
Yeah, and pretty much we see Agni choose his sister. As Agni now goes inside, him and Luna talk, and they just really talk about like death and everything, and they're just like, hey, if I was a murderer, would you even choose me around all these other people? And it's a yes, and eventually they... Fuck.
That's chapter 66 though, right?
Yeah, 66.
I think we can skip this one and move on.
Yeah, and that's literally all it is.
That's the entire chapter.
They pretty much copulate, and next thing we know, guns are at the door, as all of these people who we've seen that are living with them are all holding guns in front of the door. So like Tima and Leon and all of these people.
I do like how at this point already they say, are you sure that's not a wrong thing to do? She looks like your sister even though she isn't. Isn't that still wrong? I'm like, you couldn't have brought that up a chapter ago and it actually mattered? It's already happened now.
And at 67, it starts off with sort of the attack on it as Tenma comes in and like, hey, you two just fucked, didn't you?
Yeah.
and they're just like, should a brother and sister really be doing that? But then sort of, she says that because they have lived here for so long, they understand the whole idea of, yeah, we know that you were probably Agni, and they pretty much know everything that's going on, and pretty much so are you Fire Punch. We didn't cut outside of Minetto, who is there, and she pretty much sums up her whole thing of, we're going to capture, what's it called? Judah. And in one of these panels on page 4, I swear, Jaden, you can probably back me up. I don't know how much of Naruto you've seen, but literally, Minetto looks like a Naruto character, does she not?
Sure.
So, like,
Now, here's something I want to reference when we move on.
And it's like, she almost looks like Hinata from Naruto, just like, with just that sort of cut,
Yeah, I guess.
and like the eyes and like that weird like scarf thing that sort of, it looks just very weird.
Okay.
So where do you want to point out, Jaden?
I believe it's like near the last panel when Mafaj appears.
What?
Mafaj, middle finger of justice.
Yeah, middle finger. Yeah, so we're about to get there. So pretty much they go outside and an explosion occurs on the building. And, oh no, Luna has some body parts completely taken out of her. She's regenerative blessed, it doesn't matter. As all of a sudden, we see Agni starts walking out, coming to screw everybody up. As middle finger of justice man appears.
So, you see the way he slices his arm up? Does that not look like a JoJo panel right there?
I can sort of see it, yeah.
It looks like stupid crap that would happen in JoJo where their body unravels or something. I've seen that multiple times before.
Yeah, but at this point, yeah, the middle finger of justice guy's here, right? Mafaj. And all of a sudden, they're here again. Middle finger of justice man pretty much just puts up a bunch of middle fingers and just like sticks them all into Agni.
Yeah, like he just like stabs him over and over and over and over.
And Agni steps up, and there's this really weird thing where Agni just goes on his face. There's one stuck in his face, and he takes it through, and he cuts off the skin of his face and tacks it into his stomach. It's just weird to me.
What? I didn't even see that.
Yeah, look at it. He just comes here, he takes it, slices it off, and then you see it on his chest. It's so weird. And then we now look over at Middle Finger of Justice Man, and he's got this full suit of armor with just two middle fingers with swords coming out of it.
Because I noticed.
And to be honest, Middle Finger of Justice Man looks really cool.
Because I was thinking like, Why does his eyes look so weird in that panel?
Yeah, it's just so weird and demented. But we can all admit, who's your favorite character in this series?
Netto.
It's Middle Finger Justice Man.
Okay, Middle Finger Justice gets a close second.
Because we just see Middle Finger of Justice Man here, and it's on page 9 of 68. He looks just cool.
Sure.
That looks awesome.
Sure.
Like, he's just got like a full suit of armor on, and
okay.
Middle Finger, it looks cool, Jaden. And then all of a sudden we cut to black as Middle Finger of Justice Man is dead. Or not quite dead. He's asking Agni to kill him as we see Agni's all beaten up and bloodied. And Agni goes to sort of put him out of his misery as, what's her name? Tina comes over. And sort of puts herself in front of the Agni who's about to punch Middle Finger of Justice Man. And is just like, stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, I'm going to be honest with you, I've enjoyed everything we've read so far. Mostly. Besides for chapter 66.
Okay. Alright.
I do like this progression of Agni is sort of being happy in a way, living his life with Luna and all these people. He's living a normal life, sort of putting everything behind him, right? And then stuff with Sun appears, and Sun's just crazy. I didn't really like all that too much, but then Netto comes and like, hey Agni, please just save everybody, please. You can help us do this. And this attack happens, and there's just, I love Middle Finger of Justice, man. He's just so cool. So he just appears out of nowhere, and I think it's really cool. And then I really do like this next chapter where it's pretty much Tenma standing in front of Agni like, hey, I thought I wanted Fire Punch dead, but right now you're just Agni. If you kill somebody, you'll go back to being Fire Punch, right? Mm-hmm. And she has this really interesting line at the end where she's just like, everybody but you wants to be happy. Like saying that everybody just wants to live a good life, but you're the one who keeps struggling for this power and want and thirst when you already had that.
Yeah, I like that a little bit. I'll give a little bit of credit to that. But, you know.
I do like this moment, and it's like Agni sort of puts down his fist, but Tenma comes and gives him a fist bump, and this was the thing a few chapters ago about this fist bump that him and Luna shared. So he goes back and just thinks a whole bunch of stuff about Luna, as all of a sudden Agni just stands up and he's like, Tenna, I'm the one who killed your father.
I am the Fire Punch.
I torture your family loved ones. Because I don't know if you remember, but who is Tenma? Doma's daughter.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not Agni. I'm Fire Punch.
So we get this whole spiel about not killing, and he seems to almost listen. And he just changes his mind in the same chapter.
Because it's for Luna's sake. He's just so crazed by this Luna.
Yeah, I guess.
As we cut over to a oh, did I skip a chapter?
70.
70. Oh.
Tom Cruise.
My yes. I'm sorry. I am going through on a Shonen Jump app, and since I already read all of these, we start off at the end. And sometimes there's a few issues with Shonen Jump's app where it'll show the first page of the next chapter. So it starts me at the end of the chapter 70 on 71. But pretty much what happens now is Agni's like, I don't care about this. What happens is Agni just comes and slaps Tenma over the face as Tenma's really upset about this, but also Oya is. And we have seen before that Oya has a fire power, right? And he casts that fire power at Agni. And if we think about family trees,
he's the descendant of Doma.
He's the descendant of Doma.
Eternal fire.
So he has the eternal flame. And he pretty much sets Agni on fire, and Agni has this thing where he's just thinking about it. And we cut to Togata for some reason, who I guess was talking about Tom Cruise to Agni at some point. And I just love how Togata's thought progression goes through, like, I really like this movie actor named Tom Cruise. He plays a hero in a lot of movies and looks awesome in all of them. No matter what movie he's in, he always looks the same. He's one handsome guy. I even think that when he's not acting, he's probably just still as awesome. But the more you read about him, the weirdest Tom guy seems to be. He makes past all the actors who play the lead heroines in movies, and he tries to get them to this cult he's join.
Join Scientology.
And it's just so funny, because she's like, I mean, that doesn't bother me too much, but it got me thinking, you know? I didn't want to believe that. I thought he may have looked in for the movies that I know about him, but I can still watch Top Gun, or War of the Worlds, or Mission Impossible, and see Tom's a cool guy on the screen he's always been. I think he's a really cool guy in general. It comes out of nowhere.
Okay.
But do you sort of
has to do with the whole perception of him, yeah.
Yeah, it comes to the perception of Agni also. And we see that Agni's doing all of this, and he sort of steps up, and he is on fire like he normally is.
Yeah, exactly back to how he used to be with the one side of his face not burning.
Yeah, and I do like this, as he's like, if you come near me, I'll kill you. And he looks at me and says, hey, just never use those flames again. They don't go out. As he just walks away. Now, I don't know how I feel about most of this, but I do like that ending to where Agni's like, yes, I know who you guys are, and kid, don't use your flames to screw over other people, right? It's not the right thing to do.
Don't join Scientology.
Number one fact we got from the chapter right there. Chapter 1 starts off with car stuff, as Judah's in a car with Nanetto, and hey, Nanetto knows how to drive here. Do you remember that from last chapter?
No.
Last time, remember, they were going off selling Middle Finger of Justice Man, and Nanetto knows driving the car and said, I'll learn how to drive this thing.
Yeah.
So Nanetto knows how to drive now, 10 years later. Look at that. But we pretty much go where Judah, Luna, whatever on the car's like, hey, what's going on here, right? And Nanetto's pretty much like, hey, you did a lot of crimes. And all of a sudden, we cut over to Sun, who's talking with Soya and the other random dude.
So, real quick.
Yeah.
With the whole thing with Luna and Nanetto, Nanetto says something where she says, don't try to escape, because then I'll kill you and then restrain you.
I'm reading it right now. She does not say anything like that.
Okay, well, I guess I'm just...
No, it says right here. It's a good thing you're quick to understand the position you're in. If you try to run away, I'd have to tie you up.
Okay, because in my version it says, I'll kill you, then restrain you. And I'm like, what?
Yes, you read fan translation straight, and it's bad.
I need to pay $2 a month to get the Shonen Jump app.
It's actually $3 now.
Inflation, whatever.
And then we just cut over to Sun, who is with the Soya and the other person. And he murders both of them in cold blood.
Yeah, a very fast kill as well. I mean, it cuts like one panel and already dead.
Well, we have to remember, he is a lightning blessed, so I'm sure with that...
Yeah.
He has quick movement, that sort of thing, probably. So, Sun commits murder, and then he goes out talking about, like, hey, with the flames of Judah sends down burn for eternity, let's warm up this world. So, he is crazy. Not much to say about that.
Yeah, I mean...
72.
72, yeah.
We start off as there is a forest fire going on, which leads me to believe there were still trees in this world. I thought they were all disappeared. And if it's so cold and you need firewood, why don't you go there and chop down woods instead of burning humans alive?
Plot holes, Fujimoto. Come on, man.
So pretty much this whole forest is burning down, and Agni's here. And Agni pretty much wrecks a bunch of these people's crap. We see an ice bless that appears who can conjure ice. And his whole deal is that he was prosecuted because of the Ice Queen, which, that makes sense. It's a world-building detail. He gets murdered.
Yeah, the action is really hard to follow throughout this chapter. It's a lot of blurry images.
And the whole chapter is Agni just murdering all of these people. And that's literally most of 72.
And really, it makes me wonder how this got greenlit for Shonen Jump. Because Shonen Jump's meant for...
This is Shonen Jump Plus.
Plus, okay.
Plus is where you can show a nipple or two if you need to.
Okay, because I was about to say, Shonen Jump is a typically relatively young audience.
Yes, and that's the whole thing with, like, Chainsaw Man was something really out of the picture for Jump.
Yeah, Chainsaw Man, Hell's Paradise, Jujutsu Kaisen.
Well, no, Hell's Paradise again, that is a Jump Plus title.
Okay.
So a lot of these things that you may think are a bit more of an interesting bunch, they're probably Jump Plus.
Okay.
So I don't know if you know the manga of Jigoku Raku or Hell's Paradise.
It has a lot more nudity in it. Straight up, yeah.
Straight up. It's just breasts, but
yeah,
it is... You could barely go... it truly has a thing of, yeah, if you get set on fire, your clothes are going to burn off. So, what's under those clothes? We're going to show it.
Yeah, maybe it's realistic.
And to be honest, I am, because if he was going to go that way, I'm glad that they sort of went all into it.
Yeah, well, Japan also has much more of a culture that they're okay with nudity. They don't care.
Yeah.
As long as it's not sexual, obviously.
Yeah. And really, I mean, thinking like a Hell's Paradise, not really much of it is. I mean, a little bit of it is with the deities.
Yeah.
But that can just be seen as just weird stuff.
It's not a big focus.
No.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, at this point, 73, more murder just occurred. Just more and more. We get, like, half the chapter is just action stuff. And there's this one guy who's kneeling on the ground and he's just like, hey, I will totally surrender. My family's back there. Please have mercy. And he's like, Lord Agni's sort of praying to him. And Agni, or we should call him Fire Punch, because he sticks his hand in his head, like, I'm not Agni, as he burns him alive.
Jesus.
And then all of a sudden, Nanetto and Judah get to the town, and everybody just starts throwing snowballs at the car.
They're great protest
in this
weapons.
world. They must have like the best snowball fights ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it must just be great.
They're a great protest weapon, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
Snowball fights and cigarettes are Fujimoto's thing, man. I don't know what it is.
But I feel like one of his snowball fights is one of my favorite fights in all of anime.
I have to 100% disagree with you, but anyways.
It doesn't beat... So my favorite fight in anime and manga is Arthur versus Dragon from Fire Force.
Okay.
But that Chainsaw Man, Denji versus Aki, that's a close second. It's symbolism. I like symbolism.
Mine has to be Johnny Jaro versus Valentine. It has to be.
That's a good fight. I will give it to you. Hey, we talked about that on the channel in our Steel Ball Run reviews. Go check them out. So, at this point, Nanetto just sees Sun, and Sun's here. Sort of, Sun is revolting against him. Chapter 74.
Yeah, so from here on out, these chapters, I feel, again, spread very thin. There's not a lot of content to cover in each of these. I blazed through them reading them.
Yeah, these chapters really blazed all together. So, everybody gets here, and we just see Sun is really crazy, and Sun goes on this whole rant about how Agni's just a god, and there's a bunch of that sort of thing going on here, right? And we just see that Agni is very delusional, and all of a sudden at the end, Nanetto's like, hey guys, you have to realize all that Agni is just somebody who was cursed by Doma's fire. He's just a person like the rest of us. He's not anything divine. And Sun's like, oh, you're one of them too. As we see that which is a really cool visual, he holds out a stick and uses his lightning to combust the end of it to make it a torch. I do feel like that's really cool. And he holds it up towards Nanetto's face and is just like, hey, if you think that Lord Agni's just an ordinary human, let's see you resist these flames too.
Yeah, because he makes a good point about how if it's all fire, then it burns oxygen so he couldn't breathe. And wherever he walked, he would also bring flames, which does make sense.
Yeah.
He makes a good point.
But the way I always think about it is, granted the entire ground is covered with snow.
Yeah, that's true.
And also, you don't really see, fire goes out in sand.
Yeah.
And the ground is just normal.
So he might just be delusional.
Yeah.
Which is probably more likely.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. We see that Sun is delusional, right? And at this point, Judah steps up. It's like, hey, don't do this. Now tell me away. I will just become a tree, right? She said if that everybody would be saved. As all of a sudden, Sun just like, oh, I don't care about all of this. As she's standing here, and the torch that Sun is holding just blooms into a tree all of a sudden. And he's like, what is this? As he grows and grabs Luna and sort of raises her into the sky with him using his lightning powers.
And he chokes her like Asuka.
Yeah, he does a little bit of choking, and there's a little thing of where he's like, you look just like me, as all of a sudden, he starts to drop her, and Nanetto catches her, and everybody notices something. They see Agni walking towards them, as Sun's just like, it's you, Agni. But we see that Agni has this weird demented face, which is like a skeleton.
Skull, yeah.
And it's
a cool design.
It's terrifying. And we see Luna, who Judah's like, brother, who is that you? And we see Sun just going, who are you? Sort of showing that, this isn't the Agni he remembers. And in 76, just a long short of it, it's pretty much a fight between Sun and Agni.
Yep, Sun kind of gets a power like Zenitsu where he can just level an entire football field area in a second.
Yeah, and the whole thing is like, and Sun's just like, I know you're trapped somewhere in there, Lord Agni. Lord Agni, just save yourself. And that's really all there is to 76.
Yep.
77, Agni is just so crazed, and he's just so crazy, and he's just there as all of a sudden he sort of gets beaten up a little bit, and a stake gets put through his head by Sun. And all of a sudden, we just see that he's having some flashbacks to every time he's been told to live. And all of a sudden, he just sort of explodes onto the ground, and his face burns away, and it's Agni's face again.
Yep.
And he's just like, what am I doing here? As we see that he sort of has seemed to forgot all of his memories.
He forgets the entire goal. Our main character just essentially died.
Yeah, and he's like, That's right, I have to kill Doma. I need to kill Doma. No, but the Ice Witch too. I need to kill the Ice Witch. And he just turns back to normal, but he's forgotten himself.
Yeah, which we do know from, like, what happens is when a regenerative person gets hit in the brain, they lose memories over time. So maybe that's what's happened to him, is over the years he's just lost sight of himself, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. But we sort of go back and we just see all of this random stuff as he's like, oh, I need to kill Judah too. As all of a sudden, Sun comes down to him and is just like, hey, oh, I'm sorry. He said, like, he needs to kill Judah and Fire Punch, right? And Sun's just like, you don't have to kill Fire Punch. You are Fire Punch. As Agni looks up and he's like, Sun, is that you? Oh, you got so big, Sun, right? And he's just like, oh my gosh, is that really you? And Sun's like, oh my gosh, you're back. This is great. And Sun's like, you better not be acting. As Agni's like, acting? No. As his face just burns all entirely up again, we see that he is crazed again, and Agni's... And so it's just like, Agni, was this my God's final test, Lord Agni? Will you finally come down to me? As we see Agni holds out his fist and it's raging in fire, and he thinks of his sister some more and starts to burn Sun.
Ultimate betrayal, oh no.
Yep, and we see Sun is half on fire as Fire punches back up once again.
And Agni finally says, I want to live, or something along those lines.
Nah, he doesn't.
He doesn't?
No.
Okay.
So yeah, it's pretty much this whole thing of where Sun is getting burned alive. Next chapter, what is going on? So Sun is burning alive, and Sun's like, please save me. And he's like, who are you? And he sees Sun burn alive. And his Sun's burning alive. Judah comes up and hugs Agni. And Agni's like, who are you? He's like, I have to kill someone. Is it you I need to kill? As all of a sudden, Judah goes up to Agni's face and sort of brushes the fire away from his face and takes out that half of his face as she kisses him. And she's like, you don't have to kill anyone anymore. I'm sorry for making you act like my little brother. You're not an Avenger, nor a hero, nor a god, nor Fire Punch. This time be what you want to be. That's my wish. And he's like, Luna. And she's like, live. As she takes away like half his face, where I guess like this fire rage control side of him is. As Nanetto's running up, is like, Sun, Judah. And you just see Agni dead on the ground here. As, oh no, there's a new Agni born again right next to Judah.
Yep.
Agni's been reborn.
What in the world, man? This series...
We only have 4 chapters left, Jaden. We are nearly there.
Yeah, so the thing is, when we hit chapter 80, I thought this was going to be the last one. I didn't know there were 3 more chapters after this. I was like, when does this end?
Yeah, because I guess you didn't really know, but chapter 80, we see that as soon as Judah used her blessing, she remembered who she was, and she's like, this isn't Agni anymore, this is just a random boy. I want you, Nanetto, to give him a happy life. And she's just like, but he just killed Sun. I lost Sun. So yeah, they cared for each other, look at that. As all of a sudden she's like, just make him into somebody he would want to be. As she grows into a tree. Yep. So she becomes this very important tree, and yeah, it's very important.
It is an interesting visual.
Yeah.
I'll give it that.
And all of a sudden, there's this weird thing where Agni sort of has this flashback to where him and Judah were children, and he told a lie about potatoes and how they found potatoes inside of Luna that they ate.
I was like, what? Is that a typo?
No, it says the same exact thing in this chapter, and it's really weird. As we sort of get more cuts to this movie theater, and they're sitting in a movie theater. As we cut to 80 years later!
80 years later, yeah.
And again, which is so random. And it's 80 years later as somebody walks, and Agni's sitting in a movie theater watching a screen, and this girl comes in, and she says, Son, sir, referring to Agni, and she's like, Madame Nanetto will be going to heaven soon. And Agni here, who is being called Son, I'm still going to call him Agni, because that's who we know him as, is just like, got it. As he walks outside this movie theater into what looks like a place where there's this tree growing up and there's wheat all around.
It seems like this man has no emotions anymore.
No.
And he's just devoid.
Yeah. It's very weird. We got 3 chapters left. Let's blaze through these.
Okay, so now he's Sun.
Yeah, because I guess Nanetto forged him in Sun's memory, and since he's regenerative blessed, I have to say, like, how he's just walking through here, he looks a lot like Denji in like some of these panels. Like I'll show you a lot. Like you can't tell me that's just Denji with black hair.
Yeah.
Right.
I am glad that the art style did change a little bit between then, because Fire Punch is pretty ugly. It's a pretty ugly manga.
Yeah, and we see that Naneto is dying, and Agni's like, Sister Naneto, and she's like, son, is that you? And Agni asks a few questions like, who am I before you started calling me son? Because I feel like I was somebody before. And she's like, you never told me, and she's dead.
Yep.
That's pretty much it. And we go see that Agni's now sitting on a cliffside looking out at this great tree and all of this wheat as this random lady comes up and is like, son, sir. And Agni's like, you can call me Sensei. And she's like, oh, yeah, right, son Sensei. And she's like, this is for you. And we see this is a pill that pretty much makes regenerative blessed die easier. And we pretty much learned that since there's a bunch of wheat here, a war is about to break out, and this world doesn't have long.
Yeah, because I think they rediscovered nuclear weapons, which basically means that there's no hope for this world. There is no happy ending here.
No. Did you know about this? Because one of the big things about Fire Punch is that it always has had a very nihilistic end to it. Like, end of the world is going to happen. It's just how does it get there?
I never knew that about it.
Yeah. So that is a thing, and the thing about it is that while you can sort of tell that, yeah, it's like a nihilistic ending, like, I felt like it isn't sort of a nihilistic ending. You know what I'm saying? Like, we'll just get into it. But pretty much we learned that, like, Agni trained this lady to, like, just live, and she, like, Earth's in a state of decay. She's like, well, I'll leave now. I'm glad I got to talk to you one last time. She's like, oh, that reminds me. I found something from one of the years long past, and it's a camcorder. And she's like, you do like things like this, right? As we see, Agni goes into this movie theater and puts this camcorder on. And that's where we end chapter 81. At 82, we see what this camcorder is. It is the camcorder that shot the Fire Punch movie.
So he's watching himself.
So he's watching himself, and I find a very interesting note here of where it's just like, the film must have been damaged. So all of this hard work that, like, Togata tried to make her movie ended up getting damaged in the end, right? It's like a very sad thing, and it was only black and white, and it had no sound, but Agni sort of resonates with the movie. He's just like, this guy always seemed to be fighting for something. It was so gruesome, I didn't get the point of it. But that man still kept burning throughout the entire duration, and without even realizing it, I found my hand was clenched into a fist.
It's so gruesome, and I didn't even get the point of it.
Centuries later!
That's how I feel about this manga, you know?
Centuries later.
Yes, centuries later.
We see this tree, which is bloomed out, and we see this little cocoon with Judah in it. And Judah's having this crisis of, I've got nothing to do, but I feel like I'm here for the sake of one man.
What a horrible existence.
But I forgot what his name was, even my own name. What did I even do before this? What am I? A millennia later! What am I doing here? What am I? What's going on? I pray to this man. I don't know who he is, but I still pray for him. And we even see that the earth below him...
shattered, right?
Is shattered, it's destroyed. And she's like, I wonder if I did that. What happened here? More millennia later, even more millennia later, millennia upon millennia of years later. Chapter 83, the final chapter of Fire Punch.
My only note.
No. We will finish out, and you can give your final note then. As we see that Judah's just up in the sky in this cocoon still. It was unimaginable agony. No matter what I thought or what I did, nothing happened. There was only nothingness. I was sure that this pain would continue forever. And she's like, somebody help me. As she's just swirling around in this cocoon. And we see Agni come. And Agni, this random other human around here. They start talking. They have fun. And it's a miracle. And they're like, who are you? And she's like, my name's Luna. And they're like, oh, my name is Sun. And after the two of them talked for a while, one of them fell asleep. And then Judah falls asleep too. So presumably the last two humans both fall asleep and die together in the end, as final page is just a movie theater with Agni and Luna walking through it. And that is the end of Fire Punch. Tatsuki Fujimoto's 83 chapter work that, to be honest, I read it.
My last note for chapter 83 was at least it was easy to draw, because it was all basically line art. I would give this series a solid 1.1 out of 10. I need to add a decimal point right here. 1.1. And the reason that is because I have to find something, in order for it to be a 1 out of 10, something so unenjoyable that every single chapter is irredeemable in every single way.
That's the thing. I don't think every single chapter is unredeemable.
It's not.
I sit here and I think about Fire Punch, and I am not as critical as you when it comes to series like this, right? I will normally put myself through reading something that is objectively bad, and I will give it to you. This series isn't great. But again, I'm sure, as we talked before, our first attempt at writing something wouldn't be too good either. I'm not trying to defend Fujimoto here. It probably sounds like I am, but this is his first series, and he obviously wanted to tell a story, but didn't really know how to tell it. And it is a big mess of where he has some really good ideas. I like mostly everything that revolves around Togata. And to be honest, I sort of like how he ended the series with just this, everything went to shit. There was no happy resolution. And we're here to get into the series, and at least these two people will find happiness in their last moments and die together. And that's it.
I think I'll give Chainsaw Man credit. Chainsaw Man was enjoyable. I'll give it that.
And that's it. It's your personal preference. And you don't like the series, and so that's fair on you for not liking it.
And one of the reasons I think that is that Denji is a well-written main character.
Yes.
Agni isn't.
No.
He's so one-dimensional that there's nothing to root for.
And there's a bunch of these parts where, okay, is this Luna, Juna? Who is this? And then it's this thing of like, Agni, you found happiness and peace. Try to keep it for yourself as he just appears and like, no, he's going to go and kill everybody again.
It is impossible for this man to remain happy. So
I didn't really enjoy it all the way, but it was okay.
That's a very nice way of saying it's bad, Corbin. This series sucked. What's our next one?
It wasn't great. I mean, so is everything Tatsuki Fujimoto's written trash?
So far, all I have to read is, I think, a couple more things. So I have my hypothesis. I'm now doing my testing, and I'm going to write a theory. My theory is that everything's bad. Right now, I'm still in the experiment stage. Okay, scientific method.
You're going to write a proof on how bad Fire Punch is?
Yeah, I am.
But this was Fire Punch, and
unfortunately,
I don't think I'm any better for reading it, and I may be a little bit worse.
But you win some, you lose most. This was definitely the most.
Yeah, but I think we had fun talking about it.
Yeah, the only redeemable part of these chapters were the discussions.
Yeah.
And the friends we made along the way.
So, with that, as you know, on this channel, we, at this point, Fire Punch was Jaden's pick. And now we will be going on to my pick for the next series we are going to read. It is a series that I've wanted to read for a little while, and I don't know if you've even heard of it, Jaden. But do you know who Yoshihiro Togashi is?
If you tell me what he's done.
He's the mangaka of Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter.
Okay.
We are going to be reading his experimental comedy manga titled Level E.
I've never heard of this.
So, pretty much, I'm just going to read off the description of it. Tsutsui Yukisasa was a freshman who had just entered high school, and he was hoping to be a good baseball player. When he moved to a new apartment, there was a man in the room. He said he was an alien and lost his memory. Actually, he was the first prince of planet Dogura, and he was a man who had the best brain and the worst nature. This is a 3-volume comedy supernatural alien manga written by Yoshihiro Togashi of Hunter x Hunter. So we are going to be reading that next time. So
okay, it's 3 volumes?
It's just 3 volumes.
Okay, so we'll probably do 2 videos on it or 1?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
We'll talk about it.
All right. But you'll see it eventually.
Yeah, you'll see it next week, next Thursday. But yeah, Jaden, I enjoyed talking Fire Punch with you. And I don't really have too much to say on the title of Fire Punch. But like we said, we've got other videos, the same series on the channel. If you liked what we talked about today, hopefully you won't mind subscribing to the channel, dropping a like, or doing any of that sort of stuff. A bunch of our videos on the channel. Jaden's even in a few other videos that isn't this series, so you can go check those out. And again, thank you very much for watching and hearing our thoughts on Fire Punch. And with that, well, this is going to be Jaden and Glowplasma 231.
We're done.
Out.
See ya.
We're finally out of Agni.
That sucked.